So that is, I was not aware that Moon Studios is only 90 people. That's impressive, especially with how fast you guys have been updating this in particular. So on that note, with your development now kind of broadening and becoming much less about just kind of going down that kind of standard action adventure path, does this new approach change anything that you guys may have felt from the beginning of the project? Is this how you always wanted this to be 7 years ago? Or is this new kind of much more broad approach something that evolved over time? And now that we're here, does it change your future plans for the game?
The answer is kind of like a little bit of both. You know, I think in one way we've envisioned that this is what we would be making. The ambition for this game was always, there, right? We always wanted to make this magnum opus for Moon Studios. We always thought about this project as something we would be doing for a good decade, probably. And the way to get there, I think, is where we've learned a lot. And I do think that while we had, a very kind of well thought out path in early access and the campaign, the way we thought about this, we're learning so much. Just there's always so much you just cannot anticipate, especially when the product is so complex. You just have to let it out there. You have to see people play it, and as you're trying all of these additional updates, there is a feedback loop that's happening, right? You're seeing what's happening. You're looking at, the data that's coming in, the telemetry. You're looking at the feedback from everybody. You're reading all the forums. The YouTube comments, everything, and then you really try to make the next move as informed and as intelligent as you can, right? So just sort of being very locked into this idea that we had of like, oh, a year ago we built a plan and let's just stick to this plan just because we had a plan. I think that's not the right way to create art, and it's not the right way to create video games. We want to be very agile, so we want to be able to say, hey, we had this plan and we thought we would do ABC, but actually now we think we should do C, B, and then D, and then maybe A would come way later, right? And this is this constant idea of iteration and learning and doing the best by the product. Ultimately, we have this North Star, and the North Star is how do we utilize early access in a way that allows us to build our vision, right? In the most real way. And by the time 1.0 hits, hopefully everybody plays this game and they go, oh wow, like, okay, it's undeniable, right? Like we were able to tune everything and adjust everything and perfect everything to the level where people understand what we're going for. And I think that's basically the sort of the ethos, right? Is to be vulnerable, is to be a little bit, not being afraid of making a mistake, not being afraid of trying things that maybe aren't as balanced or aren't as perfectly executed every step of the way, but enjoying the process, right? Enjoying the process of trying things out with the community, enjoying the process of just giving people all of these new modes that are just, people go, oh, wait, was this a roguelite now? Like, what is this? It's like, no, it's not. It's an experience you have. And we have so much aspiration for the Crucible. There will be additional statues, and there are already actually additional statues. They're just not active yet, but we will be unrolling more and more modes. And we already spoiled a few things, but you can imagine you would have a boss rush mode, or you would have a survivor mode, or, there's just so much we can do with the platform, the foundation, the combat system, the world, the loot system, all of the mechanics, that now we want to just give people these different experiences that are all very fun and very, I don't want to say, we don't want to use the word addictive, because that's not necessarily, we don't want people to be addicted to our games, but we kind of do, you know what I mean? Like, we don't want people to...
You want the player to always feel like there's something to do, right? Which kind of leads to that same idea of addiction, but maybe not the word.
Exactly, yeah. We would like for people to be able to control their addiction to our game, but to want to play more, if that makes sense. It's that idea of an experience where there's always something new, and we're just getting started. When we will be rolling out multiplayer, I'm really excited about that, because there's a very, very interesting networking foundation that we've built for so many years, because we've been able to build this absolutely from scratch, right? We didn't have to be committed to any particular engine or any particular tech stack. We basically built everything from scratch for this game, and the way we can network physics and the way we can network combat is going to be something that people, I think, will really appreciate. And there's so many different things you could do with that. And the lag is basically non-existent, right? You can do PvP in a way that you cannot do, in other Souls likes, if you will. And I think that's when it's going to start being really, really cool. And that's when this idea of that this is a multiplication of different things as opposed to just A plus B plus C. It's A multiplied by B multiplied by C that we're going for.
Cool. Very cool. That was definitely a lot. Also, something in chat real quick. I think from one of my management, if you want to check that real quick. So one thing, and this is a two-parter, and this is one of those things where it's just, an interest in my views, and I'm sure lots of your fans, in how you approach these situations. A lot of times in situations like this, when you're developing something so new that can go in so many different directions, community feedback is important, but it's also really important that you guys get out the vision that you want. So how are you guys balancing with a game so infused with community feedback, the idea of giving the players what they want, but also delivering exactly what you want to give them?
Yeah, that's wow. Your questions are really, really great. Like this is a constant discussion in the team as well. And I think there's a healthy balance to be struck. And the cool thing about this is that Moon has always been this collective of people that were very, very opinionated, right? So we always kind of built this culture where everybody can speak up. Everybody can say like, oh, I don't like this mechanic and this art isn't working and this music doesn't work for me and whatever, right? And we're kind of used to the operation by which we have key drivers of the vision that have the vision, that know what they want. And then we have a lot of passionate people giving feedback and opinions. And as you can imagine, sometimes these opinions are conflicting, and sometimes these opinions are misguided, and sometimes maybe they are lacking, bigger context, right? So certain mechanics, they might not work at first, and then you always have this big question. And I think that any creative project struggles with the same pattern that occurs, and that is when you try something and it doesn't work, is it because the concept itself is flawed, right? So conceptually, this doesn't work. Or is it because the current execution, for whatever reason, because of specific details and specific tuning of it or whatever it is just not working. It's not clicking, right? So is it the concept or is it the execution? And I think this is where you have to really take a step back, meditate, and understand, take the new input you're taking from the community and understand the pain points, and like, okay, people say, okay, look, we don't like timers. Timers suck, right?
Yeah. In fact, I was just about to ask that because there's been a lot of feedback about like the timers in town and like, what's your thinking with that? And what are you guys doing with it?
So that's one of the good examples, right? Something where there is a vision for it, which doesn't stem from something like, we will do monetization and, it's like this mobile game mechanic. We personally hate all of that stuff. And this game will not include any of those features. It's going to be, you buy this game and there'll be expansions at some point. That's it. So we're not planning to add any of that kind of stuff in the game. But the reason it exists is to build a world that feels lived in and feels like it's changing, right? When you're not playing. So it's about creating a situation where you have something to look forward to, that the rewards are in the future. So there's a bit of this delayed gratification feeling, which I think is a very powerful design concept. And I think this is a great example, and we've been debating this in the team very, very heavily recently because of the community feedback. And then the question is, well, is it conceptually that the concept of delayed gratification and concept of things taking time in the game, right, to get your reward, is it that the concept itself isn't going to work? Or is it the detail as to how we do it right now that for some reason do not connect, right? Or that people don't appreciate? So for instance, I'm, kind of like always liking to think about things from different angles. And I tried to think of a counterexample for myself for like, well, what would be a great example of a timer that most people would be able to accept, right? And I came up with this, and we will have this, of course, but I came up with this example of farming, right? Like everybody probably absolutely accepts the fact that, okay, you have these seeds that you plant into the ground, right? You water them, and then you get rewards later, right? It takes time for your crops to grow, and there is something extremely satisfying about that, right? It's like you build
Rewarding.
your garden.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the reasons I love farming in games. 100%.
Exactly. And that works. But then you have this Danish builder in town, right? And he's going to build this entire staircase for you, or he's going to build a new house. And you're like, why did that not happen immediately? Like, why did he not build this over 1 second? It's like, well, because it takes time, because we want the world to feel like it's a lived-in world and things make sense. And these things actually don't happen overnight, because these are projects that in real world would take a little bit of time, right? And for some reason, people accept it with farming, but they don't accept it with the other thing. So we'll have to figure out how to navigate this and how to convince people, right? And maybe adjust things a little bit. So there's a few really good ideas already that we have sort of in flight for how we could improve the feeling of these timers, quote unquote, and hopefully find the way to have people understand what we're going for, and not have this, maybe a lot of the reaction is coming from the, kind of free to play, monetization stuff, where people are just immediately putting us in that box of like, oh, this is what they're doing. Screw these guys. We don't want to. We don't want any of this.
Yeah, and it's interesting because and this kind of goes back to what you were talking about at the beginning. I mean, you guys are trying to do so much, and the expectations come in where it's like players are looking for things that they understand and it can attach to other things they've done. So I feel like a lot of times, just like that, people see the timers and it immediately in their mind goes, oh, mobile game, free to play. Like, and then all the alarms and expectations go off and they explode. So it is an interesting line to walk. Like you'll need to figure out, like, how do we give that feeling to players that want it, but also, somehow give that feeling to the people that only have 2 hours to play per week because they have 5 kids and a full-time job. That's a tough one. Like that, it's kind of like, that's going to be one of those ones that, going back to earlier, where it's like you have to figure out the feedback. It's kind of like that's a scale where the left and right, you go back and forth. So that'll be interesting how you guys do that. Is that, somebody just said in chat, that's impossible. You can never please everyone. Yeah, I think at that point it just becomes like, and excuse me, just kind of musing out loud here, but at that point it becomes like, how do you please the most people? Like maybe put the timers in, but then allow players a method to pass time in game. Anyway, like we're at this point, we're talking about other stuff. But
no, I think that's absolutely right. And I think we will be very, very, we are very receptive to that feedback. So, that's maybe, again, to put the cap on the question of how do we balance between design by committee, basically, where, people say do X, and if there's a Steam comment that says kill all timers and it's like super upvoted, we just go, okay, we kill timers, right?
Yeah.
There's that extreme. And then there's the other extreme, which is like, people don't get it. We're going to be doing our design thing and we have the vision and, whatever, we don't care, right? And I think the right healthy medium is the right answer. And what we will try and do, we will do changes to the timing mechanic, to the timers, to everything. And we will have more content roll out that will make a lot more things make sense. And we will revisit this topic, right? We will revisit if this is better for people. And yes, there is this problem that some people I see are passionate about in the chat, where timers always suck. And I think there is ways to do certain things that will give that person with 5 kids the reward they need, whereas also giving somebody like you that maybe likes farming and likes that kind of feeling something also. And that will be a very interesting iterative back and forth. And we're not married to any particular exact implementation we have right now. We just know that the concept itself can work, and it's a powerful concept. We do know that the execution isn't working, and it sucks. We're being punched in our Steam score. As like, as perfectionists and as creators, it's like the culture and the climate seems like it changed so much on the internet right now that, like, whenever you make a smallest misstep, there's like so many negative reviews you can get over every single small, like, oh, we didn't release on the same day and date in all time zones. So certain time zones were very, very angry and left a lot of negative reviews just because for them it wasn't the 25th anymore when
Yep.
this patch hit. And it's
Well,
like,
okay,
yeah,
please
you
continue.
go, yeah, you go and you think about this and you go like, look, it hurts, right? Because we're really trying our best to do something special here, and we're really trying to listen. But at some point, you got to move forward. You got to make some decisions. You gotta keep going, and you got to take some risks, right? You got to be vulnerable. This is part of early access. Is it's like we didn't promise that this game is done. We promised that we will take you on a journey with us, where we will build this in a way that you will be able to experience. You'll be able to see how this changes and evolves over time. You'll be able to make a difference, and we'll have a lot of fun just creating something new and different that nobody can place in a box. And that's what this is about, and not necessarily about being perfect every step of the time. It's like you can't. You gotta accept that certain things aren't going to work, and apparently that means that some people are going to be very vocal about it.
Yep.
But we're working behind the scenes to try and get this right, and
Well,
hopefully we build that trust.
for sure. And honestly, I have to say that I really like your approach on this. It's the kind of thing where it's more concerning to me if you guys would have seen that Steam score and just turned the timers off, because clearly that's not in line with what you want to do. And that could immediately impact future plans that maybe relied on that system working in a way that's intuitive, interesting, and fun. So like it's good to know that that's the approach, that you're playing the long game. Basically, you're betting that the long game product is going to outweigh any turbulence now. And I think that shows a lot of confidence. And I think that's awesome, especially with how the development and stuff you're talking about now. So one other thing that's interesting with that is, and just to throw in some stuff here, I absolutely hate that they're called Steam reviews. I feel like they should completely change that name, because they're not reviews at all. It's just like a general, things you should know before buying the game. And very rarely is that score anything to do with the game itself. It's just like it has to do with bits of knowledge you might want to know before buying. They definitely have a place. I think they're great. Maybe Steam feedback, Steam things you need to know. But the idea of like Steam reviews, like that's always bugged me. Steam opinions, maybe. I don't know. But it puts you guys in this unfortunate situation where it's like, in this process, there's, especially during the process, let alone the end product, but during the process, you're going to break some eggs. I mean, that's going to happen. So, you're going to make people unhappy as you experiment with these mechanics. So I feel like the whole system kind of is kind of a big disadvantage in a lot of ways. But I mean, it has its place, which is good. And also I will say, and this actually is going to lead me to a question. Mm-hmm. How do you view your Steam reviews? Is this like is it a vocal minority situation, or is it a main source of feedback? How do you guys view it?
I think that there's definitely a little bit of that psychological thing where the minorities that are vocal always are overrepresented on the internet, right? That's definitely true. But I also think that the way we see it is that these people are passionate about what we're making, right? They spend time buying this game, playing it, and they don't like it, right? For whatever reason, or something bugs them, or they have a very strong emotion towards something. And I think that is feedback you absolutely have to look at, right? As an artist, as a creator, you cannot be, your ego cannot get in the way. You gotta be able to understand and empathize with who is going to be ultimately playing this game, right? We're making this game for other people. And that's the thing you're then reconciling with your vision and with your conviction and your confidence about certain bigger pillars and design decisions. And then you figure out the detail of how to get there. So I would say that we're confident in the vision, we're confident in the big pillars, and we're flexible in the details, and we will figure it out as we go. And we don't want to write off the feedback as saying like, oh, okay, these people are just shouting and they just, they're just like to complain or whatever. It's fair. They purchase this product, they care about it. And I think we prefer that there would be somebody that tried our game and they don't like it, then nobody would try it at all, right? So at some point you gotta, I think it's still a net positive, even though it's an uncomfortable feeling to have, because of course we come from Ori, we had like 97
Yeah,
rating,
you guys knew exactly what you wanted to give out, you did, and everyone loved it. So this is a very different experience.
Yeah, this is being vulnerable. It's that feeling of being vulnerable and leaning into this discomfort of taking risks. And while the review system is not perfect, it's probably better to have it than not have it. You just need to know how to use it, and I hope that, and how to read it, right? How to how to react to it. And it's never fun to see like, oh, your score just dipped because this silly thing happened, right? And it's silly, and we'll fix it, and there was maybe miscommunication or this or that,
or that a mechanic isn't finished or only half in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or the game is not finished, and people just like we had this thing with performance, right? Where of course we've labored super hard to get everything right. We've been able to make it work on Steam Deck, but of course it wasn't in a perfect spot yet. And you always have to trade something for something else, especially as a small team. As developer, you got to decide, okay, where do you put your big resources? And when you release a video game, you always probably prioritize creative excellence over technical excellence, because if the game creatively works, that's the most important thing, because technically you can always optimize it later, right? You can always fix this. And unfortunately, you are, as a small team, you are stuck with that choice, right? Like the best obvious answer to this would be like, no, just hire more people and you don't have to do it. But there's always this sort of cascade of dependencies where optimization always has to happen after all of the big changes and features are implemented and all the content is put in. And so it's just not possible to get all of these things lined up perfectly, especially for an early access launch. And we were pretty happy with where we were, and for an early access release, of course. And then we've heard the community and we were like, oh, okay, so there's a lot of people with much weaker hardware than we anticipated that really want to play this, and it's not working for them. Okay, we prioritized the performance like the most important thing since then, right? We really turned a lot of things around. We put a lot of resources internally to speed up that process that we knew would have happened anyway, especially because we will be doing consoles and that kind of thing. And now we're Steam Deck verified, and we're still working in parallel. Like there's so much we're constantly improving, and we have planned out for the next 1, 2, 3 months. We wish we would have just burned through all of our backlog in a day, and released all of this. But at some point, developers need rest. They have other things to do.
That's these days especially. That's great to hear.
and we have to make sure this is sustainable, that ultimately this is a sustainable development structure that allows us to do this for a very long period of time.
Very cool, very cool. Well, first of all, I just looked at the time. I don't know how much more time you have, but thank you for staying here over the time that we were allotted already.
No, of course. And I still have about, I definitely have a few more minutes. So if there's any questions in the chat we could address.
Well, I have two, actually, that I'd love to ask you. The first one real quick, and then we'll definitely get a couple from chat if we can. The first one is, what is the next Crucible? Have you guys talked about that all yet? Like, what is your next focus? Or do you not want to announce that?
I see what you mean. So what is our next big module that we would be releasing?
If it's too early, that's fine. If you want to focus on the Crucible, that's understandable.
There will definitely be updates to the Crucible still. Not sure if in the short term. That's actually something I'm about to jump in a call where we will be discussing our roadmap and how we want to continue. I think there are...
You can just PM me the number for that. That's fine. I'll just jump in.
People want multiplayer, and we know that. And that is something that, of course, we've built this networking foundation for both co-op and PvP for so many years, and we can't wait, honestly, can't wait for people to try this game with their friends, because it's a completely different experience. And it gives you so much more, so many more hours of joy out of the same content. So we know that that's something that people want to see the most. But we also need to create more loops in the game, and we need more content to be added, because this, we want the world to be much thicker. And there's a lot of also internal work that we want to be doing to improve our ability to iterate on this game, to improve our ability to...
Oh, the internal tools, yeah.
Yeah, just the tooling, the process that we have, because we're always learning, right? Like you take one step, two steps forward, and you go like, okay, well, this could be better, this could be better, this is too slow, this could be a risk in the future. And you have to reconcile all of these different things into a roadmap that works, right? So it's not just about, well, what do people want, right? Or what would be the most the thing that would give us the most players to come, because like you could be very short-sighted and say, let's just maximize for whatever is going to make the most amount of people jump back into this game, right? But again, this is not the game we're playing. We're thinking about this in the long term. We're thinking about this in terms of what is the strategy that gets us throughout early access and come out on the other end with a product that is really, really awesome, right? Really, really polished, really, really balanced, that the vision really came through, that we've iterated on this, we know all of this stuff works. And that, I think, is our North Star, right? So I cannot tell you exactly yet what the next big thing is going to be. It's going to be, once we go through that process now of seeing how people play the Crucible, what they think about it, I think we will make those adjustments. We will make a big announcement with the updated roadmap, and there's multiple options in front of us. But it's going to be between obviously multiplayer in some shape or form. It's going to be between a big meta game update in town, things like farming and other things that you can do in town, and it will be things like expanding on the world and giving you more depth and systemic replayability in the overworld. And we're kind of thinking, as for the big updates, what should come first and what should come second, and that's the process we're going through.
Well, awesome. That was a very thorough answer. So as we kind of round out here, if you guys have any kind of quick questions in chat, feel free to pop them in here. But one thing I did want to give you the opportunity to do is, what is right now these days the no rest for the wicked elevator pitch? You just got into an elevator with somebody, you have until the next floor to get off. What do you tell them about this project?
See, this one, if I'm in
and good luck.
We have it, but I am just thinking, because the best way to do an elevator pitch is to use other games, right? Names, and say this plus this plus this plus this, mic drop, right?
Yeah.
And I think publicly we got to be careful with that, because I don't want to necessarily be associated with any particular box again, right? So I want to be very careful not to do an elevator pitch that
limits you really from the sound.
And puts me in another box, basically, which is now a combination of other boxes that I just created, right? By mentioning specific other specific games. But I would say that elevator pitch. Let me think. Without you, because obviously internally we always, when you would talk to an investor or you would do whatever, you could mention other games and it's fine. But publicly, we try to do our own thing, and we try to create something that is an amalgam of things we love about other games, but we're not copying any particular product. We're not about that. So I would say that what we would want is a video game with excellent tactile mechanics, a world that is deep and grounded and that people can cry in with the stories we tell, and a combination of different mechanics and modes of play that make it into a quote-unquote platform that allows you to have really different experiences, but all under the same umbrella, all under the same game, right? So instead of switching between different games, you would go like, I'm done with Wicked, I'm going to go play something else. You would say, I'm done with this mode, I'm going to go and do something else in this game, right?
Cool.
Because it has that breadth and it has that depth in all of these different areas. And yes, I would say it's not uncommon for us to talk about scope creep internally. So I've seen some people say that in the chat, oh, it's scope creep. It's like, no, see, this is where I think if you really distill the vision, if you really look at the different inspirations and you really are crisp on defining what the key components are, and you put it all together then into one product, then you can be very focused. and you can be very streamlined in your approach. You don't have to just be everything for everybody, and that's definitely not the goal, right? It's not the goal to be everything for everybody, but it is a goal to create breadth and variety of the different experiences you can have within something that has brutal combat, beautiful world, and the loot systems and the the meta progression that we have.
Very nice. Well, that's definitely a thorough answer. I just reached the 1100th floor, and I am fully informed. I appreciate that. No, it's interesting because I asked that question knowing that it would be something tough for you guys to do, and sure enough, I mean that answered exactly what I was wondering, because it is kind of hard when you're making something brand new like this. Like you don't have that connective material to kind of reference because it's brand new. But yeah, definitely dig it. Definitely dig it.
But that's what's exciting about it, right? That's like when we wake up in the morning and we ask ourselves, like, would we rather do this or would we rather do that? Like, we would rather try something new and different that is difficult to maybe explain and it's difficult to iterate on and build than being safe, than playing it safe and doing, another iteration of a particular IP or a particular concept. That's been done before. So I think that's what we live for, and that's why I think the unknown of it, the adrenaline of trying something that is different and might be not well received maybe, or not clearly understood by others, and then kind of navigating that. I think that is really cool, and that's what early access is for, and that's why I think we really wanted to do it that way.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm sorry, this guy is a lot tougher than I was anticipating. As we wrap up here,
you're able to do both at the same time. I'm just really.
It is my extreme adult ADHD in action here. So before we wrap up here, is there anything you'd like to mention or anything you'd like to say to the community? Anything you'd like to talk about before we wrap here?
I mean, there's a lot. There's really a lot to talk about this game. We're still, trying to be spoiler free, if I may, because I could probably talk about things I would regret.
Oh no, please feel free, spoil away. Totally okay here.
But I would just want to say that everybody that jumped in and basically tried this game and is giving us feedback, whether it's positive or negative feedback, you guys are awesome. Thank you for spending your time with this game, for being passionate about it, for letting us, develop it, make it better, learn from it, and for giving us, basically a motivation every day of, coming up to work and, making more people happy and more people satisfied, and just watching all of these reactions that we see. This is the most awesome part of being a creator, right? So just thank you guys for allowing us this opportunity, for giving us your time and your trust with this, and hopefully we keep building that game that we always wanted to make, and you guys keep telling us why it sucks, and we fix it and we make it better and better. And at some point, we're all here playing something that is unlike anything else, and we're very happy we were in this journey together. So just thank you is what I would like to say.
Well, I mean, from us, I've been doing this streaming thing for a very long time, over a decade now, and I hate to say it, but I could count the number of times on 4 hands probably where I really feel like devs are doing the whole kind of EA thing right, and really appreciate you taking the time to give your perspective on this. It sounds like, especially given your project, that you guys are approaching this in one of the best ways possible. So we really appreciate it, and I think I speak for a lot of us when I say we cannot wait to see what this is going to become. It's basically what we're doing now is we're watching a flower grow, and we know it's going to be pretty, but we just don't know what it's going to look like. And that's kind of a fun place to be as fans. So thank you for your time. And last thing before we go, what is the best way that people interested in this project can follow it?
I would say our Discord is really fun, and we try to engage with all the fans there pretty much regularly. Twitter or X these days is also.
It's still Twitter. It's okay.
Yeah, it is for me as well.
It'll always be Twitter.
It is another place where we try to stay in touch, and every single complaint or every single thing you message we see, and we try to respond. those are probably the primary. Of course, there's a website and there's the Steam community, and our forum is another place where if you want to do more in-depth and long-form feedback and engage with people that really, go deep, I would say our forum is pretty excellent for that.
Perfect. And as kind of like a central hub, something I can shout out, like norestforthewicked.com to get to all this fun stuff, or is your Twitter have all the links?
I would say No Rest for the Wicked Twitter would have
Perfect.
most of it. No Rest for the Wicked website forum.
Perfect. Okay.
I would go.
Well, thank you so much for the time today. This has been really cool. Honestly, I kind of hope we have this opportunity later on. I'd love to kind of like check in when major patches drop and like see how the development's going, and sponsored or not sponsored. It'd be really fun to kind of see how that is. But thank you again for your time. And
thank you for having this entire slot for just us being able to talk to all of you, and absolutely let's do this again.
For sure. Well, thank you again for me and the community, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Well, dude, that was fantastic. I tell you, it makes me just feel good knowing that there's like teams out there functioning exactly like that. I love that. Like that, I feel like that's what most of game dev should be like, is that. So I really like that. Also, as somebody who has my own project coming up in EA next year, it's incredibly inspiring to hear exactly how these teams approach this stuff. And Moon Studios, that's already a successful team. Like the stuff they're saying, like this is tried and tested stuff. So it's a great little look into how that works. And yeah, I can't thank the devs enough for doing that. And that was really cool. Anyway, we're gonna keep playing. I've got at least another half hour to go. I want to explore more of this, maybe get to a boss and stuff. But yeah, let's definitely keep moving from there. That was awesome. That was freaking cool. Okay, let's get going. Oh, you know what? Here you go, chat. You get one.